What's up, Rudy?
What's going on, sir?
Running around, man, as usual. Crazy, tired. Yeah.
That's what it takes, man.
You get my text? I just texted you back.
Let's see.
I didn't, did I?
You kind of talked about it. You talked more about human capital
All right, cool.
or relationship capital.
All right, cool. I got it. Can I get the hydration thing though? Thanks. So, Christian. God dang.
How you doing?
Lavi. Jordan, what's going on, guys?
How you doing, David?
Yeah, man. How you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Avi, what's up, bro? Glad to see you wearing a mask out and
Man,
about.
Dave, I've been running around today, man. I'm glad I made the call.
I'm glad you made the call too, man. You and Daisy, I swear, the two people that I always find the most interesting. I always wonder what you guys are doing at the time on the call. But hey, at least you're dedicated. That's dope with me.
Exactly. I'm always got to be dedicated.
Love hearing that. Christian, I saw the numbers. I'll go over those in a second. Okay. Well, there's only 8 people right now. So we'll see what else joins on. Okay. So how's everyone's week going so far? Pretty good? It's Thursday.
Yeah, so far so good.
I don't know what day of the week it is. What's up, Mike? Mike can't hear me. Dominic, what's going on? Mike, what's up? How you guys
Going on,
doing?
man? Pretty good. How are you?
You're good. Thank you. All right. So I'm glad everyone's doing okay. We'll see if more people are joining on. Did anybody catch last night's stream on podcast? Well, you should have. It was a good episode. It was live. It was me. It was Alvin Jones and his sister on their podcast. Some of the local guys who are on, the major radio stations, and how they've adapted from radio and TV to podcast. Now podcasts have kind of made an influence and difference of what we've done. And the one thing I talk about, which is interesting about my podcast, is it was for the people I don't know. And last week when I talked about it, a week before that, it was, ranked number 1 from New York Weekly's top podcast for 2020, in front of Mr. Rogan, Mr. Gary Vee, and Mr. Tony Robbins. So the kid from El Paso, who's in El Paso during the pandemic, during COVID, is the guy who some way, somehow had the impact that you want to have towards people, and was able to really kind of make this one of those big things. And the one thing I think I told you guys about, which is really important for you guys to understand, isn't necessarily the podcast, but it's the grind behind the podcast and the current grind everyone is doing as a streamer, as an influencer, as a business person, as anything else that's in between, the grind behind when you're a salesperson and those numbers. And so I want to talk about this is at what point do you give yourself enough where say, this is the best I'm going to do. I'm not going to be able to do more, right? At what point do you have a come to Jesus meeting with yourself and say, this is absolutely not going to go where it needs to be. How do I stop? How do I move forward? How do I make the things the right way, right? There's points in life, and I'm sure every single one of you, whatever you're doing in business and life, you're trying to figure out how you're going to get to that next step and when to succeed and when to quit. And I'm going to tell you this, when I talk about that podcast, and the one thing I mentioned, I'll mention this again, up until the 5 weeks that I was there, 5 weeks into it, I almost stopped doing the podcast. Multiple reasons. Time was the biggest issue. I didn't have the time that I needed to do the podcast because I'd spend an hour a day of my time speaking to my guests, going through things, thinking of new specials, thinking of ideas that make sense. Number 2, with the addition of time, I have to figure out how I'm going to, relate to my brand and my people and my audience. Right now, you are all a brand. And your brand is the most significant thing, and how you shoot your brand out in social media, as I've told you guys before, is your new online resume, right? That is part of your brand. So whatever brand you guys are doing, that's a consistent issue. The question is, do you want to be stuck with that brand the rest of your life and going from there? So simple examples, if any of you guys know about road rules and in real world back in the day, what ended up happening was, I knew a lot of these guys. 20 years later, they're still stuck doing the same thing with the same challenges. They got stuck in that brand. They got stuck by being that person. What they assume as a temporary benefit to gain the maximum exposure, they are stuck with that brand the rest of their lives. So when I was doing my podcast, what was a brand I wanted out? Do I really want to talk about my relationship with my father to hundreds of thousands of millions of people around the world? The question is maybe, maybe not. Do I really want to talk about the day-to-day intricacies of my life for everyone to hear it? The question is maybe, maybe not. You can change your brand, and you can change other people's brands, and you can adapt the brand to fit different demographics, but you to be true to your brand is the only way to do it, because when you're not true, you're almost caught up in a lie, and you're unauthentic to the point where people don't want to work with you, right? So you can see it, right? When you're talking to someone who's on the camera and they're unauthentic and they're not doing the right things, and you see someone else on the camera and you see that person, they're telling you something else, you as a consumer can understand how that brand works and if that brand is going to relate to you. Now think about it. When you're stuck in a certain brand, what happens with those brands? Brand deals start happening with those brands. That is a straight indicator of what direction your brand is in the global marketplace. So if you get hit up by Gamer from Mountain Dew, that means that you're hitting the right branding because Gamer's hitting there. If you're getting hit up by Off-White, that means your branding is now more image-based and conscious-based. If you're getting hit up by Bob's Food Shack, then that means they think that you have enough of a brand to talk about food and grow from there. What is your brand? When I constantly get people hitting me up and trying to brand with me and work with me, I don't look at the bottom line. Now, everyone's going to say, that's really easy for you to say that. First off, it's not easy for me to say that. Nobody knows what my bills are, or my expenses are. Secondly, what more importantly is, I am thinking about my legacy. Is this the last thing I want? Is this the thing that I'm going to do? And how am I going to do that? If you're managing people, which everybody here is managing something at one point, how are you managing their brand? And is that brand authentic to them? And then does that speak to that target consumer? Think about what I just said. Why do you like your favorite streamers? Why do you like your favorite athletes? Why do you like your favorite gamers? Why do you have your favorite podcasts? Because that brand authenticity hits you and it matches you and it gives you the W that you think you deserve because of the way your brand is. Now, the great thing is you can overhaul your brand if you haven't hit into a level of not coming back. But if you haven't done that yet, you can still have time to adjust and change your brand to fit the best thing. I'm going to give you an example. I was approached by a group to help blow my brand up to millions of people, right? So finally, someone's called me and they want to put me in millions of people. What's the first thing I start thinking about? My privacy, my life, the mistakes I've made, the potential mistakes I've made, the criticisms that my family is going to face. Think about what I just said. And although that's very tempting and all that's something that I would really like to do, and all of that could be millions of dollars coming in during a recession, during this COVID pandemic, I have to sit there, and before I say yes, I have to analyze everything good and everything bad. When you're making your decision-making process on your brand, what you're going to represent the rest of your life, and if you're managing other brands or other people, what is that brand going to be? If that brand goes to crap, you go to crap. Let's give you an example. Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods, for most of you guys that know, biggest name in golf, was signed by Nike. The moment he had the potential cheating scandal, because at that point it wasn't even done, Nike dropped him. Now, does anyone want to ask why? because his brand as a family person and Nike as that person didn't match. And that's how brands start dropping people. It's not working with people. It's not being part of people, right? So what you do all around makes a difference. I think about Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart 15 years ago dropped the F-bomb on Twitter. And what did he have to do 2 years ago? He had to get out of, he was hosting the Oscars at Grand Sort of one of those, but he had to get out of it, right? So what am I trying to tell you? If there's anything that you've written, said, that you even think is questionable, go delete it. Go delete it right now before you blow up. Go delete it, delete it, delete it, delete it. It might come back, but you have to delete it. Number two, if you're working with the brand, just because you see 6 million and 10 million followers, that doesn't mean the brand's right for you. I always talk about opportunities, not necessarily a good opportunity for you. You have to run back and run your diligence and double check it, because the moment you're associated with that person screws up, you're part of that screw up. Brand. And if they recognize that you're part of that screw up, the people that you're sponsoring, that you're working with, these other people that want to do business with you, they'll associate you with that brand and that failure, right? This is a very tricky world right now. It doesn't matter. We never talk politics or religion, but no matter what way you sway, you're wrong. You're wrong. It doesn't matter what way you sway. You're wrong. You're wrong for this one group. You're wrong for this other group. You're wrong for this group. So this is why I don't talk about any of that stuff. And you follow me for a while on social media, because it's bad branding. It's just going to offend someone. It's not that I don't care or I don't have that. Think about the actors. Do any of the mediocre actors, the ones that aren't big, you have to get to The Rock's level, the number one most followed person on Instagram, the number one most followed male on Instagram, and now he spews his political views. Why didn't he do that before? So if he's being very conscientious of what he's giving out, and at that point, it was, had millions of followers, what are you giving out to in your brand, and who are the people associated around you with your brand? That's the question. When I go back and talk about my podcast and I talk about that brand, now I'm getting hit up by people that want to sponsor me, right? Do you think I'm taking anybody on right now? Yes. But you don't think that I'm running through these brands and I'm asking key questions. And I'm going to tell you what the key questions are. Here's what it goes. Sahil's heard this from me before. We're working together. Christian's heard this from me before. We're working together. Mike and I have talked about this. Let me tell you what it is. Where are you going to go? Where do you see yourself the next year? Where do you see the alignment of the brand with me or the company that I'm working with? It doesn't matter if it's Terry's Burgers or Papa John's. The brand has to align with you and whoever you represent. Now, remember, just because the brand works for Christian doesn't mean it works for Ashley, doesn't mean it works for Dominic. They're all different brands. But this is capital and key. If you're trying to chase after a brand to sponsor work with you, what have the previously people done? What is the data that's shown for you to now work with this person? Think about what I just said. If historically a brand drops people after 3 months, if historically a brand drops people after 6 months, or they hit a certain level, and it's all across the board, do you think that historically that investment is worth your time and putting your brand behind it? The answer is hell no. It's not a partnership in real reality. And this is why people get dropped. And in the world that we're in, dude, I don't care what you do. Always remember, there's always going to be a camera on you. Always. Always, always, always. So you better think as conscientious that your mother is sitting next to you, and any action that you do, or the person that is the most stringent to you, you better use your head and think, if this person's sitting next to me, my mother's sitting next to me, what would she say? If I'm at a club and I'm popping bottles and I'm having a good old time and I'm acting like a silly person, I'm a little drunk, and I'm talking to this person, what would my mother say to me at that point? Because people now will take that footage, they'll use it against you when they need to use it against you. That's branding. That's thinking. That's long-term. That's supposed to be successful and failing. And the worst part is is that everything at this point in our lives are going to be documented. And then if that is not what you want to hit, then how do you still get to the level by making the adjustments that you have to make? Think about what I just said. If it's not necessarily for everyone that you have to have 10 million followers on Instagram. If you know, you know. That's what Mike said, right? If you know, you know. What are you guys doing and who are you associating yourselves on your brand, right? Think about what I just said. That is a huge, huge difference on how you work and how you appeal and go from there. Are there any questions about that? Because I'm gonna lead into the podcast discussion on that point. All right, so go ahead, Mike. Nothing, Mike? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I love this subject because, I mean, I think everyone here can benefit from personal brand, whether we realize it or not. And I think all of us, as you're saying this with deleting any past posts and whatever it might be that we've said that might come back and bite us in the ass, do you think it's a good idea to start fresh in some accounts? Like, let's say for me, I had a Twitter years ago, like when Twitter just came out, but I was just out of high school, you know, who knows what kind of stupid shit I was saying. If I were to really be honest with you, like I can't truly tell you that I was saying the most politically correct things just to try to be funny or who knows what. In scenarios like that, do you think it's better just to start fresh and make a business account, keep things private? What are some input on older?
So there's two things that happen to this, right? If you delete the account and someone wants to go after you, they're going to dig it up and know that you deleted the account. And then they start asking questions why you deleted your account, right? If you go back to the personal account and you start deleting all things that weren't there before you guys make it to the level you're going to make it, that might be the, you know, say, look, before this, I was a nightclub owner. I'd be like, oh, come in for $5, you know, beers. I mean, there's stuff that a businessman now probably wouldn't say, right? But everything changes. The thing is, you have to be conscientious of the things that you said, because if you said something like that, because the climate keeps changing in this world, you have to make those adjustments or you're going to be stuck and you're going to be put in a place of, this is a bad guy. This is a bad person. This is a bad leader. This is a bad attitude. Or you can just fully embrace it and say, yeah, I did it, so what? Right? But the yeah, I did it, so what hasn't really worked very well for most people. So I go back to what I just said, which is you have to really go from there. I am telling you this because a lot of you guys are very, very young and you're trying to create and grow your content and go from there. And you can reestablish and rethink of it. But there's a reason I am the #1 podcast, right? Because I'm telling you truths that it's not just hype and things that you want to hear, that life is great. It's me telling you from a guy from El Paso that the brand is so significant to you that that's what's going to make it not work. So my brand is, I'm just who I am. I'm a very compassionate, truthful, honest business person. And if it hurts, I will still tell the truth because that's my brand. And that's how I do it. Right. And I think when I asked, I hit up the writer and the editors, I said, how did I become #1? And they said it's because of that reason. It wasn't because I had millions of followers. I don't. It wasn't because everyone in the world knows me, because it wasn't. It was because I had a real impact and authenticity. And the authenticity came from my brand. When I started doing the podcast, I went back and forth probably 40 times what I was going to do. I was going to be funny, if I was going to be anything else. At the end of the day, I just wanted to be me. And whatever subject it was that I was going to talk about that day, I would talk about it, you know? And sometimes the best subjects, you know, I texted Rudy right for this. I said, Rudy, what do you have to talk about? Rudy's like, talk about your podcast. It's the most raw stuff. You don't have to pre-plan everything out. Sometimes the human emotion, just the ability to have these discussions, is more raw and more real than people who pre-plan it and scripted, because you can tell as an audience and people can tell as viewers. So sometimes just being straightforward with people, that's the ability to do so, and being very conscious of what you're saying going from there. That's the branding side of it, right? And so when I tell you this, everybody should be having a podcast. Everybody should have a video cast. Everyone should have something out if you're trying to grow up on that level, but most people here are involved in that type of industry, because those are the things that are going to help you continuously grow and get to the levels that you want to get to. Does that make sense?
David?
Yes.
Yeah, I would just like to add to that. Like you said, you know, everyone can have a podcast and do this. And I'll just add to that by saying, as long as you believe and feel that it's an extension of who you truly are. Because if you fake
Absolutely.
it, it's all gonna come back. It's gonna be scaffolding like a house of cards. So it has to come from an authentic place from the beginning. And if you get that set up from the get-go, then you won't have problems down the road, episode 30 or whatever, when you get exhausted of, trying to please people.
Yeah, I mean, look, nothing sucks more when you have to please people and it's not who you want to be. It's a horrible, terrible feeling. We've all done it at one part of our life. We've all posed and pretended we were something we're not. It didn't work out. It's never worked out. There is no, like I said last week, there's a fake it to make it, but there's a fake it to make it where when you're bullshitting, it's enough to at least cover. And then there's bullshitting where there's no way in hell that's going to happen. So an example is sitting, I've said this last week, standing next to a Lamborghini that everyone knows you clearly can't afford to try to take a cool guy photo. Come on, seriously? It's not yours. It's fake. And that's going to drive your followers. Boy, you're not going to get any real brands, right? It's things that are authentic to you because there's so many fake people out there right now. And there's so many people that are saying what they want to hear. The only way I can tell you is how I became 2020 #1 podcast was because I was driving my authenticity, and that's what hit the people and going from there. Because clearly it wasn't because I sold my podcast for $100 million like Joe Rogan. And I would be okay to taking third place and taking the $100 million on my podcast. But at the end of the day, at least the impact's the impact. So you guys got to think about that consciously now, sort of more than ever. For the next couple of months, whether what happens or doesn't happen, we thought this pandemic was going to end. Everyone probably thought 2-3 months, June, July. Guys, we're almost a year into this shit. This is awful. So now, if you haven't created, developed, grown your brand, adjusted to fit it, look, you have these followers, get to a certain point, but if you're not getting the deals, that brand didn't work. So make your adjustments back and keep going. It doesn't mean that you're unauthentic and not real to yourself. It just means it didn't hit what you want to hit. But you can only reinvent yourself so many times until you're authentic, right? And that's the key, is being authentic and being smart about your authenticity. That's what's going to make a big difference between success and failure. So the other thing I want to talk about coming into this is how to prepare for the next couple of months. Guys, I'm going to tell you this right now. And if everything I've done on a global level, $1 billion awards, $1 million awards, everyone I've ever met in my life, all the celebrities, every single person right now is fighting for content to be known. Every DJ, every musician, every artist are all gamers, are all social media influencers now. Every athlete, shoot, every mom and pop and 7-year-old is trying to do this, right? So when I talk about your authenticity brand, how are you really going to shoot yourself past other people, right? And I'm living proof that the numbers don't matter. And that's why I keep telling you that. In this day and age, how are you going to attract and grow people here? Viewership and content are guaranteed money. Authenticity is guaranteed partnerships. But if you can combine both, you're guaranteed happiness and money. So I want to give everyone a piece of advice and download an app that will absolutely make you money. It's called Acorns. You guys heard of this app before? Who has?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've heard of it.
I have it.
Raise your hand if you have this app. Okay, so let me tell you what it is and what I'm doing. Okay, Acorns, if you download this app to your debit card, whatever you use the most, there's 2 or 3 major factors on why I want you guys to do this. First off, it takes all your spending that you're doing. So my debit card, if it's $4.55, it rounds up to the next number, which is $5, and takes the 45 cents and it puts it into an investment. If it's $4.99, it takes my penny. Basically, it takes my loose change and combines the total and puts it into mutual funds and investments and everything else. This last year, I've said this before, I probably made an extra 15 grand by spare change. Yep, you heard it right. Because think about it. What do you do with your spare change? Right? So every time you're spending, you're actually investing. This is such a big and great app. Aston Kutcher made it, but there are a lot of people behind it because it really does get you where you need to go. But that's the first point. Here's the second point. When you go on this app and you're going to review through, you're going to see from the smartest people in the world what they're investing in. Now that's the point of the story. So I might not be able to have $450 to buy one share of Tesla, but with Acorns, I can break it up and they might have a mutual fund which invests in a combination of things, and they take combined money to do that type of investment. When you read the things that they're investing in and what they're trying to do, you will see how the economy is swaying and how to utilize that for your brands. Does that make sense? So let me give you an example. I'm going to pull it up right now in my app. Give me 1 second. So it says I have saved $1,600 of change money so far of the money I've spent. In the last 30 days, out of my change, I've invested $292. And out of that $292, where it's going, you can adjust your portfolio. Now, I don't know enough about stocks to be a financial advisor. I mean, I know enough, but I wouldn't ever dare tell you that I do know. But it can tell you to be aggressive. So you might want to do nothing but tech stocks. It could tell you to be, not aggressive. It could tell you whatever you have to do. But it also tells you things like, what do you expect to return on the market? Now, here's what's going to happen. When you see the big giants that they're not investing into them, that's when you're in real trouble. When you see them investing as much, that means this is the time right now for the next 3 months. Don't spend money. I'm telling you guys right now, save that cash. Save the cash because COVID is definitely going to go up in the winter time. It's already happened in Australia. It's happened in other parts of the world that are winter, which means restaurants are going to reduce if you're making payments there. Bars are no longer going to exist. Online retailers are going to work it. Live retailers are going to reduce. If you're selling cars, that's going to go down. Insurance are usually the first 2-3 things that people don't pay. And when you start seeing those trends of them not investing in those things, that's when you look up and you start saving your money. So I already know that's a trend. So I'm already costing down. I'm already reducing my fees. I'm getting rid of cars. I'm getting rid of certain, investments that don't matter to me. I'm getting rid of them so I can save enough capital because I don't know what is going to happen the next 4 to 5 months, right? And when people say read the market, understand the market, the way you understand it is literally going through Acorns, and it will literally tell you how you're going to go through it, what they're investing in, where they're at. So I have a moderately aggressive $50 a day plan. My performance over the course of this last month, here we go, it went up $412. It went up 8%, right? This is my loose change, right? 8%. I made $213 going from there. And then you can withdraw the money, right? Which I would never suggest you to do until a rainy day. But for those of you who can't save worth shit, or for those of you who are entrepreneurs and money always has to go everywhere, I'm one of those people. This is my how I save money portfolio thing, and has allowed me to have dividends and investments and money the whole entire time that I've been there, right? And as I'm reviewing this over and I'm looking through what they're going through on my moderately aggressive portfolio, it will literally tell you, read this carefully, it will tell you what it's investing in different numbers. And when you see large companies at 47%, right? And international companies at 24%, the big thing is the bond. When the bond's at 14%, the higher the bond, the more you better save. I'm investing 14% of bonds, which means the economy is unstable. I don't care rhetoric. I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about real world facts and numbers. This is how you can have a portfolio and learn about stocks. And once you understand, if you just Google the large company differences, the small company differences, the international company differences, and what they're doing and what's in that portfolio, what those companies are, there'll be one indicator that's always the same. Maybe they have cash flow. Maybe they have different things. But those things matter because A, you're saving your money, and B, more importantly, you're understanding how to save your money and move forward with that. I know it's pretty complex. I know you guys are like, wow, there's a lot of stuff to learn, but I'm just going to tell you this. At the bare minimum, do yourself a favor, put your debit card on that, see the money that grows. You'll thank me later. You can buy me a dinner. We'll meet in person and we'll go from there. But the money, the extra 15 grand that I have saved up from just loose change is extremely beneficial for me because I know that's going to get me through X amount of time. And if you can't save an entrepreneur, this is the way to do it. Are there any questions on this particular app? And I'm not getting paid to do this, so I'm just telling you the truth. No questions on that?
I got a question.
Sure.
So I'm a college student. I don't really have a job, but I do have like money saved in my bank account. And if I don't have a job, like how much do you suggest I should be like throwing in? Because right now I have it set monthly for $10. I know it's not a lot, but I mean it's
First
something.
First off, I'm proud of you because you had a savings and I didn't have a savings until I was in my late 30s. So congratulations on that. Good job. Secondly, you know, I always take 10 or 20% of what I make as a savings part, but here's the trickery of life. You take that $10 and you allocate that, whether it's $1 a day or 50 cents, it doesn't matter. It's whatever you feel comfortable. Sometimes I put more money, sometimes I put less money. But the point is, it's the spending money and I'll take it out and go from there. It doesn't allow you to take it out very quickly. So it allows you to play with the big boys without putting big boy money. So the answer is whatever you're doing now, go from there. But the number one rule, putting money in the bank is one of the biggest and most deceitful things you can ever do. And I'm gonna explain this to you and I'm glad you brought this up. Let me tell you why. A typical bank, you know how banks work? That's what they do. They take your money.
I was gonna say the same thing.
They take your fee. They take everything that you have, right? And what they do is once they take that, they take your money, they do exactly what these guys are doing. They allocate it to a portfolio, right? But it's their own portfolio. It might be lending money. It might be buying other properties. It might be putting in bonds. But the problem with the bank is, and this has been the hardest thing for me to ever learn, I don't even have a savings account in my bank. What happens is there's a thing called depreciation, and our annual inflation depreciation that is about 3-4%. So what ends up happening is when you put the money in there, you're actually not making any money because the bank might give you 2-3% of earnings, but at the end of the day, inflation is the same amount. So it looks like you're making the same amount of money, but you're not. So when I was at Deloitte, every proposal we ever sent around the world had one thing, which was called inflation. Every single one had inflation. Every single one had a percentage of it. And it said you had to make the changes because losing 4% is a pretty big deal when you're only making 15%. So my suggestion is take it out, throw it into this, because you can be the banks are doing the same thing. The only difference is I'm making 8 to 10% off of my investments, 15% if I have to go from there. That's what I'm trying to do. And that makes a big difference, right? And that's how you do it. And, you know, people that put money underneath their mattresses and all the old school ways that we're all taught or our parents did, whatever, it doesn't grow money. So how do you grow money? You grow money by taking change. And this basic thought process, if you think about what I just told you, if you can't even commit to taking your change and making money, you're never going to make money because you're on the right mindset. That's why everyone should do this, because it does make that money. So I would definitely have that total amount and go from there.
I got a quick one for you, David. I have a question. So I currently use Robinhood pretty actively, and I'm by no means a stock expert or anything. I follow a lot of indexes, a few tech companies, nothing too large as far as my investments go, but it's just something to get my feet wet and understand the markets at least enough to be dangerous. Would you recommend using, let's say, Robinhood and then Acorns as well, or would it be best just to keep it all under one bubble?
I mean, I don't know what your investment strategy is. I'm not a financial advisor. I will tell you that I use Acorns because it's just my loose change, and Robinhood. I mean, I have stocks and other things, But my point is, this is my loose change. This is the beauty of it. This is just my change, right? But here's an answer to your question, Mike. Here's the value. If Robinhood is investing in Apple and Google, and Acorns is investing in Apple and Google, do you think Apple and Google are a good investment? Yes. And what's going to happen is, if Apple and Google are a good investment, how does Apple and Google make money? I'm going to tell you how they make money. Apple makes money by giving you excess, right? It's just excess. In other words, who the hell really needs an iPhone 12? Nobody. Nobody needs it. But every year we're suckered in to buying the iPhone 12, the iPhone 12s, the iPhone Max. And how much money does that phone make you? Nothing. Makes you nothing, right? But if you see them pushing that through and the numbers, right? More people are buying, that means people are spending, that means the economy is good. If you hear that their sales are terrible, that means people aren't spending. That means the economy isn't good. That means you have to save. Same with Google. How does Google make money? If you're going off it's free, Google makes money off of ads and cookies. So the more money that they're going, the more they're worth, the more this is going from there. If you remember a couple of weeks back or a couple months back, I talked about the luxury, brand segment. I talked about how Rolex was wiping off the map. I talked about how Gold's Gym, I'm an investor in the Gold's Gym here, two of them, and how they had to file bankruptcy. Had the guys done what I told you to do and predetermine their financial load, they wouldn't be in the problems that they're in. Look, I have a 50,000 square foot building in Texas. Half the people from El Paso have been there. I opened it during COVID. It sucks. I've anticipated to lose $250,000 for the next 5 months. Boy, by month 6, I'm screwed. But I already pre-set up that without spending and buying anything else, because I knew that's what I had to do. And it's not about the amount of money. It's about the fact that you have to think about being ahead of time to survive this current environment. So if you're like, yo, should I buy that new car? Nope. Should I buy that new phone? Nope. Should I buy that new Jordan right now? Nope. You shouldn't buy shit. If you're going to buy anything, make sure it's tax deductible so that you can then use it against at least your taxes. Right? So if you're a gamer and you're gaming, you can buy the headsets because yours are broken, then use that as a tax deduction. If you're doing a podcast and you have to buy a new speaker, you can go from there. If you're a web designer to buy a new computer, that's the deductible, right? Those are strategies that really, really work. But by just spending and going from there right now, it is the worst decision you can make the next 4 to 5 months. It will absolutely ruin you and everything you guys are trying to do financially. You have to absolutely save at this point. That's how people can determine markets. That's how people can hedge the bets. I don't need to be the first people that go in always make the most amount of money. They're also the ones that can lose the most. I'm never the first one to go in. I have no reason to be the first one to go in. I don't need to make the biggest amount of money. I just need to feel my comfort level just enough to jump in and make enough money and go from there. And that is an ego issue, right? Which we always talk about. It's just enough to go from there and making that work. If you're promoting yourself, that is an expense. It's a marketing expense. So you put the promo button, or the advertising money. Right now, the only thing I would tell you to spend money on, if you're trying to be your brand, is advertising. Because everyone else is afraid, so they're not going to invest. And if you do invest, you will stand out. But you have to do it within your limits. So to Dominic's point, $10 or $10,000, it's what you can do. There's no shame in 10 or 10,000. There's only shame if you have 10 and you want to do 10,000. That's just your ego. But there's no shame if you do it just enough and just right to make it work. That's what matters. That's how you're going to beat the market. That's how you're going to stay alive the next couple of months and go from there. And when I talk about like your business and your profile, the people that really stand out the most are the ones that are still doing stuff, that are growing and they're showing other people, because then everybody wants to know what your magic is, what your sauce is. How did that happen during the COVID when I couldn't get my life together? That's how you build a brand. That's how you build your money in your portfolio, by understanding the most easiest way, which is taking your dollars and pennies and literally reading what I told you to read, looking at all the different companies that are there. I mean, look, if they're buying bonds as 14%, that means the economy is going to poop. Christmas ain't happening, guys. Or it is, not everyone's gonna get a PS5. That's how I think of everything, and I analyze everything way ahead of time. And the people that do work with me, they know I'm thinking leap years ahead. My brain just works in a really weird way, but I always work backwards. So anything you do, when you start your brand, when you invest, what is the end goal? If the end goal is this is my brand and I want to be here, then that's okay. But this is my brand, it's going to end up here. That's not right. If this is me investing and I'm going to end up here, right? Because I'm going to sell in this much of time, that works. If it gets here, it doesn't make any sense. I can't do it. But you have to anticipate that, or you're not going to make it through a short amount of time. And if you can't allocate yourself, whether it's $5, it's investment in yourself. Push the promote button. I never put the promote button on anything. I didn't even put it on my podcast, but it still got what it got. Right. So what am I going to do now that I'm number one? Now I'm going to call everybody and be like, yo, if you want to sell me a sponsorship and you get it and it's right sponsorship, I'll give you 20%. How hard is it to sit there and say I'm in front of Joe Rogan and you can't give me a $20,000 sponsor, $10,000 sponsor? Mike Cortez, that's you and your group, because I'm gonna have that call with Joey tomorrow anyways. But either which way, my point being is that's how I maximize my leverage and my brand over the course of the next 3-4 months to get me through. Does that make sense? I know it's a lot to intake. That's why you start with the acorns and go backwards. You're never going to understand the market. You're not built that way. I mean, all the years I've done something, I've never understood the market. I'm not a big guy investing in the stocks. It's not something I really enjoy doing because there's really no control over things. It's speculation the whole entire time, right? It's when you get hot, but that's only fueled by greed. That's not fueled by, in my opinion, real realities and real benchmarks and real numbers. And there's some guys that really, really make it, but for every one person that makes it, there's 99 guys who are jumping off a bridge because they didn't make it. And that's what you got to look at it. Manage your expectations. Oh, you got 10 minutes. Any questions?
Real quick, David, not necessarily a question, but just a quick comment and recommendation for everybody here. 2 books that I would recommend reading concerning exactly what you just talked about would be The Richest Man in Babylon and Automatic Wealth. It's a great book, and it just teaches you about the discipline about saving money and kind of finding ways to do it automatically. I downloaded Acorns just a week and a half ago, and I do got to say that I'm impressed at how fast it actually adds up. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you've done that. I mean, look, there's nothing I would ever recommend that I haven't done myself. So that's just the way it works, right? If I haven't done it and I haven't used it first, I'll never recommend it.
David, I have a question.
Sure.
A lot of people are like, they go for stocks and they think that the stocks are like the things that they should go for. But obviously you said you can't predict the market, a lot of instability, things of this nature. But when someone says, I don't really invest in stocks, but I prefer to invest in things that are alive, how would you, what do they mean by that? And what is your view on that? Because I feel like
alive is a restaurant. Alive is buildings. Alive are things that they can actually see that exist in their hands. That's alive. Right? So it's physical things because I don't trust the market and I have some sort of, I don't know, whatever conspiracy theory on how the market works, or, you know, people that are like that. But there's a very important lesson from that. Let me tell you what that lesson is. If someone tells you that, that means any emerging market, emerging tech, gaming, anything of that sort, they won't do it because they don't understand it. It's not physically in their hands. Crypto ain't going to happen. That's how you can engage who the right people to work with, aren't work with. That's how I run, you know, about to join a $45 million fund as an advisor, and it's a tech fund. And I can literally tell you that looking at the guys that are there, the reality is that's when you pick and choose the right investors are, because if they can't do that, they won't do it at all. That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. All right, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? All right. Well, there's only 10 minutes left, so if there's no more questions, want to hang up, I'm gonna grab dinner. Number one guy in podcast. People are lining up and asking me questions. You don't want to ask me a question?
I got a question.
My inbox literally has 150 people.
All right,
I'm
okay.
saying reserved for the 15 people that are here.
All right, David.
Come
All
on,
right,
guys.
David.
Like,
All right,
let's do
David. All
this.
right, David. Yeah, all right. Well, you know, knowing what you know about my podcast, Crohn's Veteran and stuff, you know, what, if anything, can you think of to help me, reach a wider audience. I mean, I like what I'm doing. I enjoy it greatly. But of course, my dream is to, just, kind of like yourself, make a big impact, and so, if you have any advice that, of what I could do, for the show, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. How do you judge impact?
There's hundreds of thousands of people that have Crohn's disease,
But
right?
how do you judge impact?
Knowing that a lot of people, are aware of, this condition, and and can, and in their way can make a difference. And so, so they want to, contribute to causes, if they want to, if they can have, a special kind of empathy and compassion for the people in their lives, because of what they've heard, but kind of, just, letting the world know that people like myself exist, and the more people that are aware of that, maybe the more money that can go into, resources to cure the condition, or, that kind of thing. So,
I know what the answer is. Keep doing what you're doing.
I mean,
Because you're. I'm gonna tell you why I say this. It's good to always listen to everyone's feedback. So I listen to feedback and I make my adjustments, because it's not ego driven, right? It's because someone's feedback is what it is. It doesn't mean that everyone it's the truth, right? And I don't change my own authenticity. But for you just have to when you keep doing your stuff, you just have to tag everybody or any celebrity or any other causes every time you guys post. Use all 20 tags. I mean, I tagged you guys and
I appreciate that.
Tagging but you, that's a tool. You should be utilizing anyone that has the word Crohn's and tagging them, and if they're bigger names, tagging them, and eventually they're going to talk to you, right? That's how you do it. So when you measure impact the way I measured impact, which is why I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because we all measure impact the same way. And that's why I go tell you, how the hell else do you explain that I was ranked number 1 in front of Joe Rogan and Gary and Tony Robbins? It's not because of my followers and my like and my comments. I don't even know a piss compared to these guys. It's based on the impact that the people that heard it and read it, they felt that emotion and did what they had to do. So you have to keep plugging away. Every single time you start wondering if you're making that impact and doing the right thing, remember my story about Pandanomics, because I was almost done with it. I was like, dude, this is too much time. And look what happened.
Right. And I do have a pretty long, kind of time horizon with Crohn's veteran, kind of like, so I'm like, I'm not, I've only been doing maybe 6 months or so. And
and that's my point. It's only been 6 months. I didn't think in year 2 this was going to happen. You know what I mean? And the guys that were on the panel, they've been practicing for 5 years, and they're asking me. And the funniest question was this. I asked if you watched it. They looked over at me. I know Ivansky watched it. And they looked over there like, Katie was like, oh, she was asking about sponsorships. And everyone looks over at me, and I look at everyone else, and I'm like, I'm not sponsored. I don't know. How do you guys do it? Like, but this is me just being very honest. Like, I'm not like, oh, well, of course I not do sponsorships. I do them all the time, but I don't do it for my podcast. So I'm not being unauthentic. Who's my sponsor, David? Nobody. It's David Chen. That's my sponsor. It's my little headset, my little speaker that's here for $45 and my computer. And that's how I recorded things. I didn't need a giant studio. I didn't make everything look cool. I just recorded it. And like, I spent $50 on my podcast. That's all I spent. I didn't spend anything else. And now I've figured out what StreamYards is. So I'm like, oh, we start using StreamYards. It didn't have to have everything perfect. It just, your impact is your impact. Don't doubt your impact, and don't base your impact on what people like and don't like. That's not an impact.
All right. I appreciate that.
So I'm gonna talk about one more thing. Avi, this is for you in particular.
Yes, sir.
I met Avi because I will be teaching at SMU this summer, as I mentioned to you guys, in esports. But I was speaking in his class. And in his class of 82 people, I actually told your teachers this, but I want you guys to listen to the point of the story. 82 people were in this class. 54 of them added me on Instagram. Hey, not bad. 54 people added me on Instagram from 82 people. That's a pretty high number. That means I spoke to 54 people. Out of 54 people that added me on Instagram, 40 people reached out. Out of the 40 people that reached out, David Chen took the time and invited every single one of them to the mentor class. I took my time, invited them, didn't charge them, didn't want anything, just me being me as a human being. Out of the 40 people that went through, 5 signed up. Out of the 5 that signed up, 1 or 2 are constant. And let me tell you what happens. So I'm sitting with his teachers talking about our capstone project. A capstone project is a project that we use with the universities on real world experiences. And I bring up Avi. And I tell him, I said, here's who stood out for me. I started naming the names of the students. Here's who sent me very personal messages. Here's who's been consistent. But you know why Avi has a lead in front of everyone else if he asked me for an internship this summer out of the 82 people, no matter how good or how shitty that project comes out? Because he's sitting here, whatever the hell he's doing. I've seen him drive a car. I've seen him sitting in front of me. I've seen him work out. And he's here every single week, not just in investing in himself, but invest in appreciating my time. Now, he can't make it every week. I understand that. But out of the 82 students, you know who the first one I'm going to give internship is? If he asks me, will be Avi. That's impact. Now think about what I just said. How did he set up between 82 other people? When 50 of them added me, 40 of them communicated with me, got invited, 5 or 6 of them signed up, and 2 stayed there. Dude, this simple example is how you are going to stand out in a big company. So Christian, with your new job, it's the same shit. How are you going to get the CEO to know who you are? What is the impact you're going to make? And like me, I don't want to ask for money for impact. I just do it because I want to do it. So I want to help. And if good things happen, like #1 podcast, thank you. That works for me, right? But I use them as an example because when people constantly screw up, when they talk about celebrities, people around, they don't, when I talk about the add value and the impact and standing out, this is how Avi stood out. I'm telling you straight up, this is how I stood out. Because he understands that this is something that works. And when you talk to like Mike Cortez, who he's dealing with the biggest brands in the world right now, I'm telling you straight up, he is. And me and Mike are having these discussions about everything. When we're talking about this, my impact from his boss, he's a guy who wants to make me a big guy. And this guy the last guy he picked was Kevin Costner. I'm a nobody. I'm David Chen. But it's your impact that you can make, and it's the way you make that person feel one-on-one. And if they feel that they can trust you, like I feel like I can trust everybody here. And so if you ask me for something, and if I can help you out, and it's not money, but if you ask me like, hey, can you help me direct me here? I'll help you direct there because I know that you're going to do it because you're at least committed to being here every single week. Impact. Let that be a lesson to everyone else, no matter what you're doing, what industry you enter, what new job you enter. If you're trying to stand alone from a job, this is how you impact. Not all of you are 6'5", 270-pound Chinese guys that walk through a door, and that's how big I am. And you look at me, you're like, holy cow, this guy's huge. I have an unfair advantage because of my race and my size, right? Like people don't forget me because of my size, but my impact, if you actually think about branding, is Panda. And I want to think about this. How many times subconsciously have you guys seen something with the word panda and thought about me? Think about it. Panda Express, fortune cookies, Kung Fu Panda. It's a gimmick. I hate being, the word panda to me sucks. It's like a mushy, fat, unhappy animal. Of all the bears, its only fighting process is like that's all it is. Like I would rather be like a dragon or a lion or something like really, really dope. But the branding side of it is why I embraced Panda, because subconsciously you're always thinking about me. You see what I talk about branding and impact and how I subconsciously did that? So I picked something that people would always remember. They just happen to be really cool right now. So it works out for me either which way, but that's how you do it. In the rap world, Snoop calls me Panda. I'm Panda. In the e-game world, I'm Panda. And that's just how it works. But that's how you impact things out with yourself and brands and make it work and go from there. When you have the opportunities to do things, do it. Stay consistent. Do what you have to do. Look, if you can't do it with me, you ain't doing it with no one else. Let's put it that way. Like I said, if you're not going to ask me a question, you're going to ask someone else a question. That's the impact. You know, and there's a reason I'm not taking on 50 more students jumping in. I don't have the time to talk to 50 more people. I just don't. I'm too tired and too busy. You know, and I deal with half these guys at 2 a.m. most of the time. You hear my voice, it's all messed up at this point because all I do is talk all day long and I'm exhausted and I just want to go to bed, right? Impact. What is your impact to someone else? How are you going to stand out? That's what you have to know. And that goes with business and life and everything else that's in between. And acorns. Make sure you get acorns. It's free. Do it. Just do it. Like, trust me and do it. It will make you money. And that, my friends, is another edition of Thank You for Coming this Thursday. I appreciate you guys. If you haven't heard my podcast, go listen to my podcast, go subscribe, go like. Obviously, it's worth something. There are a lot of business, a lot of business people there. The craziest part about when you look at me and you look at my list of guests, I don't know if anyone has seen my list of guests, but they're pretty big names. And I'm a guy from El Paso, Texas, who still lives in El Paso, Texas. And if I can get it, y'all can definitely get it, right? Think about that. If I can get the Cat Moore Wedding Director to be on my podcast, like Aaron Alvin Jones, was it yesterday? It was yesterday, right? That's what it is. You want to make an impact? Go like and subscribe. Go make a comment and tag Aaron Alvin Jones on my social media with me because they're going to see it. Impact. That's how you do it. If you want to rock with that guy that I'm talking to, be smarter brown noser. Do it that way. Like, that's just the way it has to work. But that's real impact. You know? That's how you do it. Any other questions?
How did Panda start?
How did Panda start?
Mm-hmm.
First off, I hated Panda. It was the worst thing in the world. I forgot. Someone said Panda. Oh, I know how it started. I was racing cars one day, and I was driving cars one day, legally, of course, through different parts of the world. And we were in the middle of, this is a funny story. We were in the middle of Indianapolis or somewhere.
You mean Mexico?
Yeah, Mexico City. That's where I was. And all of a sudden, on the rally that was on, I was a sponsor. And I was like, they're like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. And I didn't have third company at the time. So I was like, well, why don't we just do Panda Loves You? Like, literally came out of nowhere, just came out of my butt. And I'm like, Panda, what did I say Panda for? And I'm like, well, I'm giving out fortune cookies because that's my gimmick on the rally. Like, the reason I have followers from rallies is I give out fortune cookies. But I'm a big Asian dude. So I'm like, and then it just says like, don't say any racial jokes, man. That's what I tell people. And then it's on camera. So they're like, oh, and I'm being dead serious about it. And so it's like that awkward, the guy's trying to be funny, but you can't be funny with me type of thing. But then I'm just joking around. And then like, I do stupid things like, you get in my car, I'm like, take off your shoes because I'm Asian. People take off their shoes because they're trying to respect me. But it's my gimmick, right? And it became a running joke. So all of a sudden, I get Panda Loves You as a hashtag, and we're putting it back everyone's cars. It's like 50 cars. And then in Mexico, the APB comes out and it's recorded, and it literally says, it says high speed. There's high speed racing going on the freeways. There's a Porsche, blah 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 blah, with the words "Panda loves you." There's another car with the word "Panda loves you," and they're darting in and out of traffic. And it got picked up. And when it got picked up, we put it online, and it went viral. Because it was like, it was funny because it literally said, blah, 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 Panda loves you. And that was the hashtag from the APV. So it just kind of fell in place because it was just me trying to be funny, and it worked from there. And then I was like, dude, this sucks. I don't even know as a Panda. This is the worst thing. It's like, like, man, give me something else cool. And then instead of like going against the grain, I embraced it because I felt to myself, well, think about the branding side. And then we started a thing called Team Panda. And that was on the second rally. And that's when that song, Panda, Panda, Panda came on. So the timing just was almost perfect. And we're racing cars, we're in these nice cars. And we're all blasting Panda, 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 Panda. And literally, that's how Team Panda started. And Pandanomics started, and David Chen Panda. Because of David Chen Panda, it was David Chen Texas, and it was David Chen El Paso, and it was David Chen something else. And at the end of it, I was like, dude, just embrace it and keep the name. So sometimes the running jokes and things that you don't necessarily want to do, you can embrace and become a brand. True story. Thanks for asking that question. A while since I've been asked that one. All right, awesome. Any other questions?
Panda, David.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sorry, it's a little bit loud. I'm in Walmart.
You can tell. I need the 24 pack of Corona, man. Thanks.
The what?
The 24 pack of Corona. Appreciate you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll make sure to get it for you.
All right.
Sorry about that. So, you know, the business that I'm trying to run, One World Skateboarding, in a business where you think, or it seems like everything's been done, you know, how do you stand out? I've been having thoughts of like, you know, fundraisers. I've actually thought about doing a, what do you call it? Non-for-profit indoor skate park here in El Paso, because there's not an indoor one. The skateboarding community is pretty big. It's worldwide. I'm just trying to do something with the passion of it. You know, I started with like shirts, co-sponsoring skateboarding events, stickers, you know, giveaways, things like that. But for some reason, I don't know what it is that I don't feel it's clicking. I mean, people in the community here, they know about One World Skateboarding, but I think there's something else that I'm lacking. How would you find what is being needed, or how would you, I guess, like a thought process on how to stand out?
How long have you been doing
If
this?
that makes sense. Skateboarding, I've been skateboarding since I was 8 years old, but
No, the company.
yeah. Probably
Full time, not part time, full time. How long have you been doing it?
No, I haven't done it full time. I'm always like working or something. So mostly working and school,
but how long have you been doing it?
For about a year, year and a half.
If you had to really put in like part time, but if you made it a full time thing, how long have you done it for?
Oh, probably, I don't know, maybe 6 months.
You're not patient, man. Simple as that.
Yeah.
You did it part time a year, and you would say 6 months, 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, year 2, Pandanomics happened. I don't even have a sponsor, man. I still use this dinky rinky, you know, this mic that I bought. That's what I'm trying to tell you. How do you, when you measure, what is your version of measuring? Because if it was just based on what we all think it is, just numbers, it's not true. I've literally proven it's not true. So you spend too much time, you don't spend enough time on it, and you need to be a little bit more patient on what you try to do. And the only thing I can tell you, man, is what matters to you, and that's the niche, that's the way you have to go. So when I game, I only have a couple people that watch me game, but I'm talking about business when I'm gaming, right? I'm not the best player. I'm not gonna have the most people that are watching me. I talk about business, and I really put Forbes advice while playing 2K, Forbes advice while playing Fortnite. The kids that are smart enough jump on. The kids who aren't that smart don't jump on, but that's just my audience. You know, it matters to me because that's who I am, and authentically, that's who I can be. So when you can't find it, going so big is going to be tough. You got to start smaller. Realize that you've only put in that much time. The average time should be 2 years, 3 years before you really see anything. Usually it's 5 years before it really hits any value. But that's how you can measure it. But you have to be a little bit more patient and find that one niche I keep telling you. And my niche is my niche. And John is not on anymore. But John, if you heard that, you know what I'm talking about. You have to go get the ham. I get it. All right. Any other questions?
Just genius stuff with the fortune cookies, man. That's genius.
Branding, buddy. I'm telling you, man, the CVP, the CTO of Microsoft was here yesterday in El Paso. He came in, he dropped his Porsche off, was with me, the CTO of Microsoft, the whole company, Microsoft. I met through a car rally, and we became very, 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 very good friends because of just my personality. I didn't know who he was, and that's what I'm trying to tell you. You don't know who anybody is. And if I based on the car he drove and I based on where he dressed, I would have never been his friend. I based off just because I'm a nice person, so I just talked to everybody. And because I'm a nice person, he was driving like an RS5 and like wearing a Bahama, you know, what the hell is the shirt? Tommy Bahama shirts and shorts and whatever else. Turns out the guy is a CVP of Microsoft who wrote Windows with Bill Gates and Paul Allen and runs the Office division. But if he told me he was the Office division friend first, he would have known that wasn't authentic to him, right? So my point is, being nice to everyone really kind of helps and makes a big difference, because you just never know who they know or what they are, or what they do. You just can't judge it based on, again, how do you measure expectations? Numbers. You base it on the person and go from there. And then the fortune cookies help because now everyone gets hungry when they're driving 8-10 hours. They eat the fortune cookies. So again, more branding, right? But it's $40 for a box of fortune cookies, right? It doesn't have to be the big financial impacts. It just has to be the ones that mean the most. All right. Please take a photo. Please share. Do the thing that we always do every week. I'd appreciate it. And we will rock on and go from there. Any other questions? Have a great week. Look at I'm sorry, go ahead, Dominic.
Just a quick one. I mean, I'm a college student. I have about 1.5 years left until I get my degree. I'm doing business finance. And like, I guess what I really want to ask is like, what's something that like, I don't know, like kids like me, like coming straight out of college, like what's like, I don't know, like what's there to like expect like real world type stuff? Like, cause I don't know, I only know like really like, doing my homework, taking tests, like what's like, I guess what I'm asking is like, how can I prepare myself for like that type of stuff?
Well, the first thing you got to do is stand out, right?
Mhm.
And if you're not the greatest grades and you're not going to Harvard, it's pretty hard to stand out, right? It's the reality of it, especially in the finance world. So being part of Deloitte, the largest finance company, being a managing partner, I can tell you if it's not language, anything else, it's your ability to impact people when you have their time. So if I were you, I'd be interning part-time while going to college, because if you're literally online and you can handle your time, I'd be interning. I'd be getting the knowledge. You got to think about it. If you don't get paid, that's okay, because they're teaching you. Just like you don't get paid to go to school, you pay school. That's the funny thing about internships, right? They're like, "What am I getting paid?" I'm like, "What's your value?" "Oh, well, my value." "How do you know? What have you done in the market?" "Well, I haven't done anything, but I go to college." "Well, I didn't go to college, so what the hell are you talking about?" It has to be your ability to do that opportunity where you're learning from other people and interning. But the second thing is, how much do you want to learn, right? How much are you, if everyone from the same school is learning the same book from the same teacher every other year, what's going to make you stand out? That's the question you must have the answer to. So you must know more than everybody from the same school, from the same teacher, from the same year, because you're not just competing against them, brother. You're competing against the guys who pretty much had the same lessons from the last 10 years, the 10 years before, the 10 years after, and then you're competing against the rest of the schools and the rest of the world. So for you to stand out, you have to have experience because the other ones don't. Think about what I just said.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to make you stand out, is your experience, and then it's your attitude. That is, to believe it or not, that is the biggest difference. Christian has been with me on 2 meetings, right? We've been 2 meetings so far with a sponsor, 3, right? With a sponsor. And you could see, I mean, like it's a work of art. We're sitting here in this meeting. There's 4 people there. Ely, who plays in the NFL, is sitting there. Matt's there. He's here. I'm here. And everyone's kind of in this, like this face mood. And not me. I'm like, hey, like I'm this guy, and I'm going extra because everyone else isn't extra. Because we're talking to the CEO of the company. And for the first 2 meetings, I sat there, listened, didn't say too much, but was the nice guy. I made him like me. That's all I did. I made him sit there and say, this is the guy that I can talk to, because out of the 4 people there, he was the friendliest. Think about what I just said. Do you not talk to the friendliest person? Of course you do. It's just the way it works.
Yeah.
That's why you have to be the friendliest person in the room, because they're the easiest person to deal with. When there's a room full of people that are angry, you want the one that's the happiest face. That's the way it works. So for you, when you're in the room full of people, you can peacock and dress stand out, but you have to be the most delightful human being around everybody and the most engaged and most nicest person, because they do it. But strategically, I knew what I was doing. Strategically, these guys had no idea who I was because they didn't do their research before they talked to me. They didn't care to do their research. So they're negotiating terms and they're talking about numbers, and I'm just playing coy and I'm listening to it. I always listen. Everybody tell you, I listen first. I'm listening, trying to figure out the environment. Then I see my team with the faces, and then I'm texting my guys as I'm talking. I'm like, smile. Don't be so serious. Smile. Like I'm literally texting them, and they're not even like picking it up in time. Like I'm trying to like not kind of stuff. So then I had to go overtime happy. Like, oh, like I'm just woke up from, or just ate a bunch of Skittles, whatever. Anyways, when it was all said and done, by part 2, it was a little bit more serious. We asked a question. By part 3, I listened to them first, and boy, did I lay it on. And I laid it on. I told them, like, what they were telling me numbers, and I came back with these numbers, and the CEO who has 115 other brands, and the marketing guy, I like looking at, this is what I like having you do. I look at people's faces. I'm looking at their faces, because you can't tell what I'm looking at right now, but I'm just looking at their faces, and I'm reading them. I'm literally reading them. And you can see this in their heads going, fuck is this dude? How does he talking about these numbers? And I'm answering their questions on the things they want before they could tell me what they wanted. Because if a brand's giving you money, they want to make sure they can sell. That's common sense. It's a sponsorship. It's not because you're pretty. It's not because you have a bunch of followers. If I give you money, can you make me more money? That's just what it comes down to. It's just logic. It's anybody in this world, right? And so that was the key. And when you saw those guys and they're like going backwards in their heads, like their eyeballs start rolling in the back of their heads and they're trying to go out. And he looks over and I said, you probably want to know who I am. So I'm going to tell you what I've done. And the guy just had this big grin on his face, and his CEO, and then I said it this, without sounding like I told a dickhead, I said, I wanted to be honest with you guys, tell you up front, because I didn't want you to sit there later on and say, hey, David, you knew about this whole entire time and you manipulated the situation to go against us. So you see how I spun it as a nice guy? And I said, and I am a nice guy. So I was like, so I want to be very honest with you and tell you what I've done, so because I want you coming back and saying, hey man, I kind of feel like you pulled one over, because everybody has an ego, especially in the business world. So nobody wants to feel like you pulled one over them, and nobody wants to feel like they're getting undermined in front of their staff. Nobody. I don't care who you are. You never do that stuff. And as that was happening, I was having a discussion. Do you see them turning? I got better terms than we were being offered. And then I took, there's 3 terms. I basically got the first 2 terms. I got this term for this term, because it was like, you have to hit this to get this much money, this to hit this much money, this to this much money. I skipped all that one from there. And I didn't even finish dropping the rest of the stuff I did. Now we have a deal with 30 of our players. And then I took the inconsistencies. I knew that we didn't have all 30 players. I knew that half of them didn't have a contract. So what did I do? I said, well, I want to give you 20 first, because those are the 20 I know it can do. And the other 15, instead of going retracting on the deal, because 35, if they want to give me 35, and that was a number, I can't sit there and say, well, at the middle of negotiations, well, I don't have 35, I have 20. Now it's like a liar. So you have to make the adjustments. And my adjustment was, well, I have 20 guys I can do. There's 15 other guys that will work on their academies, but I don't want to do that to you, because it doesn't guarantee me that they're actually going to make a sell. That's how I did it. And so for you, you have to stand out and learn and educate. You're here. That's one part, right? You're trying to develop relationship capital with me. You're trying to develop relationship capital with me, so I know that if I introduce to someone, I'm not going to look like an idiot. I know that if you do something, I'm not going to look like an idiot. I know that if I look at your social media and I do a little bit of investigation and I'm dealing with you on a personal level, I know I don't look like an idiot. And then from that point on, that's how you meet people. But it takes a long time to do what I do and to get where I'm at. It wasn't overnight. It took me 20 years to make these relationships. So if I'm going to bet this relationship on you, boy, you better be worth that 20 years of my relationship. Does that make sense? So you have to have more experience and more knowledge, and you have to educate yourself. And for you, if you're in finance, you should be reading, without a doubt, you should be reading Entrepreneur, every single magazine, because finance is on a global level, and that's going to help you determine what it is. And it's a $200 investment. I get it. Come on, man. There's ways to figure out how to get it online. Just do it that way. But you should, for financing, you need to know what's going on in the world, and it starts with acorns. That's why I go back to what I said, because that's the basis of financing, because they're already telling you why they're doing that. And you go from there.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I had to go to dinner. So thanks for the time. It's good seeing everybody. Any more questions, you guys can DM me. I'm going to take my
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you guys too.
Thank you guys. Have a good
Appreciate
night.
it.
Soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you.
Thanks, David.
Have a great weekend.